shocking crimes that have rocked the Bay Area.
I was sleeping and it woke me up. Pop, 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 pop.
Even making headlines nationwide.
He committed no crime.
Some are caught on camera.
He's coming back, careful!
Shaking communities.
I'm sure he's mentally ill and he's dangerous.
Or frustrating police.
It's just really unacceptable, and we can't, this is a first-class city.
Often leaving victims heartbroken.
This is just too much. Enough is enough.
And demanding justice. This is Crime Files with Henry Lee. Hello, I'm Henry Lee, and welcome to Crime Files. In the Bay Area, crime was front and center over the past year. During this next half hour, we'll take a look back at some of the cases that made headlines here on KTVU and sometimes shook our communities. These stories are alarming and heartbreaking, and many of these incidents were caught on video. We begin with hate crimes against Asian Americans in the Bay Area. And over the past year, we saw many crimes involving victims of Asian descent. While Stop Asian Hate became a hashtag trending across the nation, people on the streets in the Bay Area demanded action to stop the violence. It all seemed to come to a fever pitch back in May when video caught the unprovoked assault of two Asian women waiting at a bus stop in downtown San Francisco. This is surveillance video obtained by KTVU showing a man walking toward two Asian women waiting for a bus near 4th and Market in San Francisco. Without warning, he stabs a 63-year-old woman from behind. Moments later, he then stabs an 85-year-old woman also waiting for the bus. The man is in no hurry to leave. A bystander tries to help the older woman, who falls to the ground. The suspect then calmly walks away. This is an image of the suspect, 54-year-old Patrick Thompson, who authorities say is mentally ill. The photo helped SFPD in the Tenderloin arrest him. One of the victims is 85 years old. She's recovering after undergoing surgery. This is an x-ray of the knife still in her body.
I'm sure he's mentally ill and he's dangerous.
Andrew Ng is the grandson of the 85-year-old victim.
It's just sad in SF where our elderly have to be scared to go out. And it just angers me and it angers everybody, I'm sure.
Many are angry that Thompson was free on the street despite being arrested for several assaults back in 2017. I've learned that in one case, he was staying at this homeless shelter at 5th and Bryant when he allegedly used scissors to stab a man in the back 6 times. Staff held him down until police arrived. But there were questions in court about Thompson's mental competency, and he was sent to Napa State Hospital to be treated. He was freed in 2018 and placed on electronic monitoring. Last fall, he completed a mental health diversion program,
where they just catch and release with these programs that nobody knows about.
Tracy McCrae is vice president of the San Francisco Police Union.
I guess they get help, and then they get better, and then this happens. So we just hold no one accountable, and it's a free-for-all, because that's not what you want.
On Thursday, Thompson was charged with attempted murder, assault, and elder abuse. But so far, police have found no evidence the attack was racially motivated.
There is no indication at this point that there was any type of hate, prejudice. We do think at this point that it's random.
Now, the defendant, Patrick Thompson, is still in jail awaiting trial. And in another case in Oakland's Chinatown, back in August, a Good Samaritan ended up getting shot while trying to help two women being robbed. Hear why the man who tried to step in doesn't think of himself as a hero. It's happened again, another attack in Oakland's Chinatown, but this time a Good Samaritan got shot.
People just saying, see something, say something, but important is do something. But unfortunately, they got hurt.
It happened at about 2 in the afternoon on August 7th. 2 armed men in hoodies tried to rob 2 women of their purses near 8th and Franklin. 2 men tried to stop them. And within moments, shots ring out. One of the Good Samaritans is shot and wounded and crumples to the ground. One of the robbers jogs to a double-parked Honda Accord. The second man trying to help, in the white shirt, is pistol-whipped and gets into a tug-of-war over a purse with the other assailant. The man who was shot is expected to be okay. He was taken to the hospital.
Many of us, we feel strongly that, this brave young man and, willing to risk their life, and these are the heroes.
Carl Chan is president of the Oakland Chinese Chamber of Commerce. He says criminals are being emboldened by the revolving door of the criminal justice system.
The whole problem is not about the police. It's about, after being caught, they will be released. If not the same day, probably the next morning.
8th and Franklin is a busy intersection just a few blocks from Oakland Police Headquarters. This video is from the same corner back on July 12th. You can see 2 men getting out of a Mercedes. They robbed 2 Asian women of their purses and took off. In frustration, a witness throws a stool at the Mercedes. In this case, the assailants have not yet been caught. You may remember Carl Chan was himself attacked near 8th and Broadway back in April. He took pictures of his attacker, parolee James Lee Ramsey, who will be evaluated for mental fitness before sentencing. Ramsey will learn his fate in February after the results of the state's evaluation are sent to the judge. Now, while some perpetrators are brought to justice, all too often these crimes go unsolved. In Oakland, catalytic converter thieves are still out there after they opened fire and ended up hitting an innocent boy.
The guy started shooting it and a bullet hit my leg.
12-year-old Fernando Melendez is recovering at home in Oakland just hours after he was shot in the foot by a catalytic converter thief.
I heard it, but it hurt a little bit, not that much.
It happened at about 3 in the morning on June 11th, near the corner of Rawson and Brookdale in Oakland's Maxwell Park neighborhood. A resident surveillance camera captured footage of 2 cars pulling up to the family's Honda Accord. Soon they lift the car up to get at the catalytic converter. Fernando's father heard the noise, got up and threw a chair and a rock over his fence to try to stop them. In response, one of the thieves opened fire through the fence. It's grainy, but in the video you can see muzzle flashes.
That's where they hit the bullets. Oh yeah, I see it. That's the first one. And the bullet the other one went inside, but I don't know where it hit.
The father wasn't hit, but Fernando was. A family friend says a bullet went through an open doorway where he was standing and into the boy's right foot.
The kid was right behind him, kind of seeing what was going on, and unfortunately got him.
I was sleeping and it woke me up. Pop, 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 and then squeal. I heard squeal car taking off.
The surveillance video shows both cars peeling away. Fernando's father took him to the hospital. Oakland police responded. They recovered evidence, including this bullet and the jack the would-be thieves left behind. His mother, Jessica Chavez, speaking through an interpreter, says her son was strong right after getting shot and that she was the one who needed comforting.
However, now that he's back from the hospital, he has trauma. He's asking why they shot him. He's only, again, 12 years old.
We have a little boy, too, who's 5, so we just couldn't believe it when we heard that he was shot. It was just heartbreaking to hear this.
Catalytic converter theft is still a big problem across the nation, and it's getting worse. Here in California, State Farm Insurance said thefts jumped 175% in 1 year. That's more than 6,400 catalytic converters stolen from just State Farm customers alone, with no signs of slowing down. Now to another case in the East Bay of a stunning crime caught on tape. A reckless driver told to slow down made things even worse. Police say he used his car as a weapon. 19-year-old Danny Ethan Wan is in jail, arrested on suspicion of attempted murder because of what's seen in this video. Oakland police say he deliberately aimed his Chevy Bolt at 3 people after they yelled at him to slow down in an Oakland Hills neighborhood. The driver then disappears around the corner.
Did you guys get the license plate?
But within moments, he returns.
He's coming back, careful!
Police say he purposefully aimed at Joseph Lax, even turning into him at the last second.
I feel worse, actually. I have to go out of work now.
Lax, a paramedic, says the impact fractured his tailbone.
It's kind of a tough area, too, because, it just hurts to sit, hurts to sleep.
He has, a bruised palm. He fell pretty hard.
Yeah, so everything else is kind of
kind of just sore, sore everywhere.
His girlfriend, Allison Amaral, is the woman wearing red in this video. Amaral is pregnant and almost got hit, as did her sister, who's in white.
We're obviously very relieved, and we're really grateful that everyone was able to kind of come through and help us find this guy.
Witnesses say the video actually is the 3rd time the suspect tried to hit the victims near Aiken and Girvin Drives. The victims say after they confronted him initially, he threatened to kill them. Neighbors helped direct police to the suspect. DMV records show that Juan has a valid license and a clean driving record. A judge has ordered Danny Juan to stand trial. He's charged with premeditated attempted murder and assault. Now, it happened in the blink of an eye. A robbery gone wrong turned into a shootout at a West Oakland gas station. A group of suspected thieves tried to rob a retired Oakland police captain, but he pulled his own gun and bullets started flying. Oakland police are chasing leads in a robbery and wild shootout at a gas station that left a suspect dead and a retired Oakland police captain wounded. Former OPD Captain Ursi Joyner was rushed in a patrol car to Highland Hospital, where he was treated for multiple gunshot wounds.
I join many people in praying for a full recovery.
Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf met with Joyner's family at the hospital as he underwent surgery.
We've seen for many years the passion and effectiveness with which Captain Joyner worked to prevent gun violence.
30 minutes, I'm tired of
Friends have identified the man shot and killed by Joyner as Vallejo rapper Lil Thies, seen here in an interview posted on Facebook in January. Surveillance video shows Joyner and his Porsche Cayenne on the left, pumping gas at the Chevron at 17th and Castro at about 1 Thursday afternoon. 3 men get out of a Nissan Sentra and then surround the retired captain, checking him for valuables. A short time later, one of the men opens the Porsche's doors and apparently grabs a bag from the front seat. That's when Joyner pulls out his gun, shooting first at the man in the red and then shooting the rapper, killing him. Joyner starts to go after the Nissan as it leaves, but is shot by 1 or 2 of the robbers.
He committed no crime. In fact, he should be tagged a hero. In fact, he's a hero for what he did.
KTVU legal analyst Michael Cardoza says Joyner had every right to defend himself. As a retired cop, he can carry a gun.
He also had a right to pursue fleeing felons who were armed and dangerous. After all, they could go on with this crime spree and kill other people.
The retired captain is out of the hospital and is recovering from injuries. This investigation is ongoing. In a San Francisco incident, police officers ended up being both victims and criminal defendants. In this case, a police officer found herself under attack by a homeless man.
She's highly as trained as anybody else.
But a San Francisco police officer found herself overpowered by a suspect, identified as 33-year-old Gerardo Contreras.
Things can go from okay to really bad in a split second.
It began innocently enough.
I don't have nothing. Turn around, all the way around. Put your hands on top of your head.
San Francisco Police Union President Tony Montoya says the suspect initially obeys the officer, but without warning.
He just suddenly turned and violently attacked her without provocation.
The officer ended up on her back as the 190-pound Contreras straddles her.
He quickly got on top of the officer and put himself in a position of advantage. And at one point, it looked like his hands were actually on her throat.
Bystanders rushed to help.
I want to shake their hands. I want to commend them for their bravery and their actions.
The officer regains control and backup arrives. The officer who was assigned to Central Station was taken by ambulance to the hospital. She was released that same day.
She's at home recovering. She's got some scrapes, bruises, obviously sore from the incident.
The police union says the officer typically works with a partner, but was solo that evening because of a staffing shortage.
And if this happens to a uniformed San Francisco police officer, how should your average resident, visitor, tourist feel? They should be concerned.
Less than 2 hours earlier, Contreras was accused of damaging scooters. This is video of him being detained. The female officer, who was Asian, went to talk to Contreras after witnesses said he was ranting at Asian people. The defendant remains in custody with a criminal trial pending. Coming up, a tragic loss of life in yet another East Bay freeway shooting. The ongoing search for toddler Jasper Wu's killer and how his family honored his memory. A heartbreaking story out of the East Bay captured attention of people around the country. An innocent toddler caught in the crossfire of a freeway shooting, killed by a stray bullet. The CHP does not have any suspects and is asking the public for help. Now we take a look at how his family honored his memory. Anguished sobs from the family of Jasper Wu, the 23-month-old Fremont boy hit and killed by a stray bullet on an Oakland freeway. In Chinese tradition, a toy plane, a miniature house were among the items burned for little Jasper, with the hope
they can be delivered through the flame to their loved ones in heaven.
Inside, a table with candles and fruit, but also Pocky sticks, candy, and a toy forklift truck. At Oakland's Mountain View Cemetery, family members and friends held a Buddhist ceremony. Jasper would have turned 2 next month.
It has been very, very difficult for many of us.
Jasper was sleeping in the back seat of his mother's Lexus, headed home to Fremont when shots rang out on 880 in West Oakland. Jasper was hit by a stray bullet fired from the other side of the freeway. Mourners wept as Jasper's grandfather spoke.
At one point, that got us all crying, saying that little body, how could he sustain this kind of impact of a bullet?
Oakland and SFPD officers were among those who came. Alameda County Sheriff Greg Ahern stopped by. The police chiefs of Oakland and Fremont also paid their respects.
It is tremendously hurtful when you have to see a child looking at the photos as a strong, very spirited, fun-loving child who lost his life to a senseless crime.
Something like this, an unprovoked, unnecessary act of violence, it impacts our entire region.
This could happen to any of us. This is something that should not be common, should not be happening. And here we are with a life that we've lost that's so precious.
Fremont City Council member Yang Shao says everyone bears responsibility for Jasper's death.
There's a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of an evil is that good men do nothing.
Jasper was cremated. No one has been arrested in his killing. The CHP says there have been 76 freeway shootings in Alameda County alone over the past year. Many of them were shootings where nobody got hurt. But all too often, we are covering incidents that are serious and even deadly. We've mapped out some of those shootings. You can scroll through their locations and details. Just go to KTVU.com. In Contra Costa County, Danville police officer Andrew Hall was convicted of assault in one of 2 deadly shootings. The jury hung on a charge of manslaughter, and the case led to a large civil payout. Contra Costa County has agreed to pay $4.9 million to the family of Latimer Arboleda, who was shot and killed by a Danville police officer in 2018.
The money in and of itself is not as significant as the criminal case was.
News of the settlement in the civil lawsuit on October 27th came a day after a jury in criminal court convicted Danville police officer Andrew Hall of assault with a firearm. The jury hung on a charge of voluntary manslaughter. Hall could face up to 17 years in prison for assault. Civil rights attorneys John Burris and Adante Pointer represent Arboleda's family.
Money cannot bring back the life. In the criminal case, it's some acknowledgement and punishment to the person who in fact took that life.
The family is appreciative that the jury was willing to do the right thing and hold Officer Hall accountable, and we appreciate that bit of justice. We just want the entire slice.
I asked Contra Costa DA Dinah Becton if she would refile the manslaughter charge. A juror told me off camera the panel was deadlocked, with 7 leaning toward not guilty.
My team will take everything into consideration, and we will deliberate and make a decision on the best way to go forward.
My instincts in this is they will not refile it. They will go with their conviction. Once he's sentenced, they will dismiss the manslaughter case.
KTVU legal analyst Michael Cardoza says the DA already has the felony assault conviction.
I don't see him ever working as a police officer again with this conviction unless the conviction is overturned.
The DA has not decided whether to charge Hall with a second deadly shooting. In March, the officer shot and killed Tyrell Wilson, who was mentally ill. Authorities say Wilson refused to drop a knife, but his family says he was not a threat. So we are still waiting for that determination from the Contra Costa County DA whether the same Officer Hall will be charged for that second deadly shooting earlier this year involving a mentally ill man with a knife. Now, he was known for helping people with addiction, but he is apparently struggling with his own painkiller dependency. A San Francisco police sergeant was arrested after allegedly robbing a pharmacy on the peninsula to support a drug habit.
But aren't you really just occupying the bad times with a false sense of feeling good?
That's San Francisco police sergeant David Cole talking with a homeless woman 2 years ago when he led a unit that reached out to people living on the streets, many addicted to drugs. Now, Cole is under criminal investigation and on leave. He was arrested for allegedly robbing a drugstore while off duty. Sources say he handed over a note that said he had a gun and demanded powerful Norco painkiller pills.
Such a sad story all around.
It happened at about 6 at night on November 3rd at this Rite Aid store on Concar Drive in San Mateo.
Police department dispatch received a call for service, alerting them to an in-progress robbery.
Officers arrived and found Cole still on scene.
He did attempt to flee on foot.
But San Mateo police officer Allison Gilmore says officers caught up to him.
After a brief encounter with the individual, they were able to safely arrest him, where he was subsequently booked at the San Mateo County Jail.
Cole has since posted bail.
Certainly there's reason for compassion, but I don't want to pretend that the behavior isn't serious.
Cole's attorney Tony Brass says his client's been battling an addiction to painkillers after he was bit in the leg by a police dog while serving as a canine officer in 2010.
He had a secret addiction since that time. And he managed to be a high-functioning addict.
Cole has spent 27 years with the SFPD, at one point serving as an acting lieutenant. He graduated from a supervisory leadership program a couple years ago.
Sometimes with police officers who commit crimes, there's a sense of such hypocrisy. But at least here we have a man who really devoted himself to helping people who were struggling with addictions in a compassionate way.
Joey Delegati's been friends with the sergeant since they were kids. He told me, quote, "It's obvious he needs help for his dependency and can only hope he receives it." Help that the sergeant has spent his career trying to give.
And I feel like when you do get housing, it's going to be tougher. But now you're going to have to struggle with getting clean.
Now, the sergeant has pleaded not guilty and is in rehab. Coming up, organized retail theft is an ongoing problem in the Bay Area, especially in San Francisco. How many stores slash their hours or shut down completely because of thieves. Organized retail theft an ongoing problem, especially in San Francisco, with emboldened thieves taking what they please and many stores shutting down entirely or slashing hours. Cell phone video shared with KTVU shows about 10 men and women escaping with designer handbags and purses from the Neiman Marcus store in San Francisco's Union Square. You can see the sign on the door reading, "Curbside pickup here." Clearly, this is not what the store had in mind.
It's just really unacceptable, and we can't. This is a first-class city.
Rodney Fong heads San Francisco's Chamber of Commerce.
We can't continue to live like this in San Francisco, and we ask all of our electeds and everybody to really focus on this.
It happened about 10 minutes before the store closed at 6 on the evening of July 5th.
The next thing you know, you heard glass breaking.
The group smashed display cases and grabbed expensive purses and bags from the racks and knocked over mannequins.
We know that several tens of thousands of dollars worth of merchandise was stolen from the store.
The thieves ran into a white Infiniti and a gray Mercedes. A Lexus follows not far behind. You can see security guards recording and watching, but not stopping them, which is standard procedure.
There are no consequences for committing crimes in San Francisco. A lot of times these low-level crimes lead to more serious crimes, and a lot of them are intertwined.
Organized retail crime has caused some stores in San Francisco to reduce their hours or close altogether.
We want to do everything we can to stop this action. We want people to feel safe to come to San Francisco. We want these stores to remain open.
The incident has similarities to several snatch and grabs in Palo Alto, including the Neiman Marcus store, The Real, and Louis Vuitton. In a statement, Neiman Marcus said, "The safety and welfare of our associates and customers is our top priority, and we're relieved to report that no one was harmed in the incident. We're cooperating with the San Francisco Police Department in their investigation." And we are seeing a growing number of organized retail theft towards the end of the year. The week before Thanksgiving, thieves struck stores in San Francisco's Union Square, Walnut Creek, and Hayward. The robberies range from aggressive street gangs to sophisticated e-commerce fraud. A new report on retail theft found that thieves stole nearly $70 billion worth of merchandise in 2019, and there's been a steady increase since then. Researchers say the economic crisis caused by the pandemic is playing a major role in the spike in organized retail crime. Even though marijuana is legal in California, police say there are pot growers skirting the law, avoiding taxes and proper paperwork. A big bust in the East Bay led to the seizure of marijuana worth millions. An Alameda County Sheriff's investigator used a gas-powered hedge trimmer to destroy marijuana plants, lots of them. The Sheriff's Office raided the San Leandro warehouse and more than a dozen other locations in Oakland, Hayward, and Castro Valley after an 18-month investigation.
This is all marijuana here. This is the best way to get it, is we put it in these bags. We'll put it in trucks.
The seized plants will be burned in the Central Valley. Marijuana is legal under California state law, but Sergeant Ray Kelly says cultivating it to this scale without proper permits and while laundering the profits is not.
This is unsanctioned. This is not legal. This does not meet the thresholds and guidelines as prescribed by the state of California.
The warehouse on Neptune Drive had rooms for different stages of growth, grow lights, air vents, and jerry-rig power hookups.
You know, this is basically modern-day bootlegging like we saw in the 1920s.
Investigators seized up to 500,000 plants, more than a dozen guns, 12,000 pounds of processed plants worth $42 million, and $10 million in cash.
This was a very sophisticated and elaborate, almost corporate-style cultivation operation.
Corporate because workers were treated to break rooms like this one, with flat-screen TVs and fine wine stocked in fridges.
$1,000 bottles of wine that they would just sip on.
After all, a pot grow like this one is hard work. Trimmers spent hours cultivating these plants, sitting on small chairs like this one. Also raided was this warehouse on 77th Avenue in East Oakland, outfitted with 10 generators. It too operated under the radar.
When you decide not to operate under those guidelines, life's a lot easier until you get caught.
The Sheriff's Office says the investigation is continuing and that more arrests are possible. If you want to learn more, you can find all of these stories on our website. Visit KTVU.com or download the KTVU News app. That's it for this KTVU Special Report, Crime Files. Thanks for watching. I'm Henry Lee. We'll see you on air and online.